Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Roundtable Africa, your usual show on every Wednesday. I am Sekou, Kelleh, your host. And with me here is my co-host, Edward Amara. And today we are bringing you latest news from around Africa. Edward, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. And I also want to join you to welcome our wider audience across the globe. As today is another important day in our history, and we are here to dissect on issues that affects Africans both home and abroad.
Yes, we are very happy to welcome our listening audience. And today we have several topics here to discuss. We will be looking at the conflict, Russian-Ukraine conflict, and how Africa as a continent responded. We'll also be looking at the Russia-Ukraine conflict again, and then the case of racism against African students that are trying to flee from Ukraine. We'll be also looking at Ivory Coast. The former speaker, John Soro, has been accused after some arms allegedly were found in his residence. This is the second time I think this is happening, and he's been accused of plotting coup against the sitting president. We will look at that, then we'll go to Zimbabwe. And then that's all we have to discuss, Edward. What do you think about the topics?
The topic are so interesting because I think we have gone to the length and breadth of the news that are emanating out of Africa. And maybe these are some of the interesting ones that we need to draw to the attention of everyone, especially the one that deals with Russia, which is, I think, is just like a pandemic news. The Russian-Ukraine news is more or less like the COVID-19, where everybody has interest and it is generally affecting the world in general. That is why I can link it to that of anything that is a pandemic thing. And both Africans, Europeans, Asians, Americans, everybody's just going through a lot because of what is happening currently in Europe, in Eastern Europe.
Definitely. As a matter of fact, the sorry, sorry guys, my voice. As a matter of fact, Russia-Ukraine conflict has taken over the COVID-19 issue. Nobody talks about COVID-19 anymore. The entire media is focused on this crisis because it does matter. So we look at the first question here, Edward Amara, the first point of discussion, Russia-Ukraine conflict, how Africa responded. First of all, let's give our viewer an understanding of what is happening between Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, thank you very much. The Russian-Ukraine conflict is something that is very interesting, and it's a chronic news. If anybody have been following international events, we all know Russia has been the world superpower. It was the United Social Soviet Union. It had enormous power before this time. Unfortunately, Russia lost its power, especially after World War II, and Russia was actually mandated by UN and other governing body to ensure that all states that are under its hegemony should be granted independence. And Ukraine happens to be one of those states. When you watch out, Russia is surrounded by 14 different independent countries, and Ukraine just happened to be one of those countries. Unfortunately, on the side of Ukraine, Russia is intertwined in Ukraine. But when you watch out the 41,854,000 Ukrainians that are living into Ukraine, about 8 million plus of those citizens, Russian citizens, are ethnic Russian. So arguably, we may say Russians that are living into Ukraine are more than the population that is in Sierra Leone, and they are also more than the population that are in Liberia or that is in Liberia. Having underscored that, since after that war and when Ukraine became independent in 1991, Russia has been having influence into Ukraine. Reason being, most of those presidents who have been ruling Ukraine prior to Volodymyr Zelensky taking over in 2014 have been Russian friendly. These are Russian installed regime into Ukraine. And Ukraine is one of the leading producers of gas and oil into the world. Russia having have a direct access to Ukraine, and because of, in fact, the number of Russians living in Ukraine is more than any other country that is hosting Russian into the world. And as stated initially, the amount of Russian living into Ukraine is more than the Sierra Leone population, and even that population, that of the population into Liberia, because Liberia is bigger by land surface than Sierra Leone, but Sierra Leone is populated than Liberia. So when Volodymyr Zelensky took over in 2014, he has been befriending NATO, and NATO is a 30 membership country made up of countries in Europe, Canada, and the America on military alliance basis to prevent occurrences like this. And also the EU, which is the European Union, constituted around 27 countries. Now we are seeing British is no longer part and parcel of the EU because of diversity, of diversity in their philosophy. When Volodymyr Zelensky took over in 2014, he had decided to sever his tie with Russia and want to create a state that may adequately defend itself against an opposition and imperialist force like Russia. He laid the foundation by opting to join NATO and even to become a member of the EU. But in the 1991 treaty and maybe after World War II, I think Russia had an agreement with the EU, the Americas, that they shouldn't progress to making nations that are east-west of Europe to become part and parcel of NATO. Poland has been taken away. So Russia felt that they would be threatened by the regime of Ukraine should Ukraine become a member of NATO. And if Ukraine becomes a member of NATO, Russia can no longer threaten UK, because if she threatens UK, the NATO will respond as a force because they believe in collective responsibility. So Russia therefore has resorted to accusing Ukraine of trying to militarization of their state, where they are building up weapons, and also Nazification of the state. So Russia decided to invade Ukraine under the hegemony of Vladimir Putin, that one, he wants to stop the militarization of Ukraine, and also to make a denazification of Russia, because he thinking that Ukraine want to create a state where they will threaten the safety and the existence of Russia itself. And also he accused Volodymyr Zelensky of wanting to commit what they call genocide into Ukraine by making like ethnic cleansing. And he also accused Volodymyr Zelensky, who is a Jew by tribe or by race, and at the same time he accused him of being a Nazi, when this man is definitely not a Nazi and is not actually building the military regime. So you may see that Russia is waging war to stop Ukraine joining NATO and to make Ukraine a vulnerable state. Wherever when they are being attacked, they will call upon Russia. And because you have around 8 million Russians into Ukraine, to make Ukraine like a cipher of Russia, and to ensure that Russia can have access to everything that Ukraine has. Unfortunately, the current regime into Ukraine, is no longer a sympathizer, is no longer an apologist of Vladimir Putin. Now he has decided to attack Ukraine, maybe to dethrone him and install a regime on his own. That is why Volodymyr Zelensky said that the primary target designate is he, and the second it is family. And Russia wants to create a dynasty to make Ukraine vulnerable. And he is calling upon, to conclude everything, is calling upon all Ukrainians to stand up against Russia. And even if all citizens of Ukraine should take up arms and ammunition against Russia, they should exonerate their state from the enemy. And Russia is saying that Ukraine was created out of a kind of what syndicated, well-planned activities of the enemies, preparing probably to the West and Eastern Europe because of what they did, and Ukraine was artificially created out of Russia, and they want to install it. And now Volodymyr Zelensky is calling upon all citizens. Now we have seen football coaches are resigning from their position, taking up arms and ammunition, MPs, and maybe Volodymyr Zelensky has sent a very clear message to the world because he has stood up in the face of a kind of what anti-developmental, dictatorial, and a draconian leader like Volodymyr or Vladimir Putin, and stood up against his invading forces. Both the MPs, I think, he has sent greater what message to the Africans and the world allies that even irrespective of your status, patriotism can do everything better. Are you there?
Sorry, it seems that I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I said thank you for brilliantly laying out the issue, happening in Ukraine. For me, Edward, this crisis, it goes deeper, or it's something that you cannot just analyze it from what you're seeing right now. You have to, like you rightly said, you have to go back to the Cold War. You have to go back to World War II to see how the geopolitics and everything played out before we arrive at where we are today. You see, first of all, people need to understand that, the NATO versus USSR is what brought us to where we are after World War II. You see, the NATO alliance, like you rightly said, was formed to be able to deter then USSR from attacking Western Europe or the Western Wall, because they were the most powerful army in the world. So the Europeans and America found that the only way they can be able to stop this power is for them forming a powerful military alliance that would deter USSR from further advancing. And they did that successfully. They broke USSR into tiny countries until Russia was left. You see, but the agreement is that Russia said NATO should not advance towards my border because we are traditional enemies. So I don't want my enemies setting out military bases at my window, because if that happens, we are all nuclear power. You can strike me at any moment, and that could be consequential. So it's better we stay away, at least some feet away from each other. So the countries that border with Russia should become non-aligned. They will become non-aligned, and they will become a buffer zone. So this was the agreement. But for some reason, I think NATO, other countries are applying to NATO. NATO didn't really force them, even though they playing their own card on the ground. But this country, Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, Sweden, and all these countries, Finland, that are towards Russia, are asking for membership. And this is what Ukraine is now saying. They want to join European Union and they want to join NATO. And Russia is saying, if that happened, then America has come right to my window. Okay, if that happens, then America will be right at my window. So we don't want that. So for that reason, Russia decided to react violently. So we are not trying to justify anything, Edward, but looking at it, before we go to African response or what African states said, do you think Russia have we're talking about geopolitics now, do you think their security concerns are legitimate? And do you think that if you know what happened between Cuba and America, in 1961, I believe, between Castro and the United States, when the Soviet Union put a bomb, a nuclear bomb in the station, a nuclear bomb in Cuba, America responded violently. That's what the beginning of the Cold War. In fact, it led to the invasion of Cuba, in the story called the Bay of Pigs, where rebels came from the United States to attack the country because they don't want their neighbor to become friends with their enemy. So do you think this is the same thing playing out here right now? Russia is saying that, look, for the sake of geopolitics, I cannot allow NATO to come to my window. And they have a legitimate security concern. How do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, I tend to agree with you, Les. When you watch at the type of dictatorial and authoritarian regime that is in Russia today, I don't want to call it, let me just say, it could be like a totalitarian state. because we are Putin is controlling everything into Russia, even the life of the people. Because when you talk about an authoritarian regime, this where maybe the leader only focuses on power. But if it is a totalitarian state, it focuses both on power, economic development, whatsoever thing. We may think that Russia, okay, it's a socialist state, agreed, compared to China that is a communist state. But what Putin is building over there, he's want to create a type of a regime where he can definitely be touchable. Of course, based on the agreement, it was agreed upon that NATO and other Western countries should not progress by joining members that are in the east walls of Europe. Unfortunately, Russia has negated on the agreement that was agreed by then, and Russia was not allowed also to build up nuclear weapons. So Russia on her own part has violated the treaty by building up a strong military state that is now threatening the very existence of other states. So why do you think Sweden, Hungary, Poland, and Honduras and other people have joined NATO? It is because they felt of Russia. So when they felt threatened by Russia, they know that Russia, with her current military strength, she's capable of attacking any of those states east of Europe, demolish them, and even try to force them to be part and parcel of their own government. And these states have definitely been afraid. Maybe this is why you have seen Volodymyr Zelensky had decided to join NATO, in order for him to be protected against the aggressive or belligerent state of Russia. We saw what he did in 2014 when he invaded the northern part of Russia by empowering, if not arming, or what in the Donbass and Crimea region. He arms a rebellion against the existing state of Ukraine. And up to now, Ukraine have not been able to successfully control that part of the state. So Russia on her own, we may watch it in a geopolitical form. But if Russia had remained friendly, she have not developed herself into a strong military or dictatorial state, which leader poses what threat to any other existing state. Maybe countries that surrounds her wouldn't have gone as far as joining NATO. But it is
Well,
because the threat that she's posing. If she poses threat, she must expect others to go where they feel protected.
I kind of disagree with you, Edward. You know, to characterize other people's country as totalitarian, to characterize them as all those
Russia
things
is a
are
totalitarian state.
all those things. I understand. We that believe in democratic principle, it's easy for us to describe other states like that. But here is the truth. You know, the United States itself, we can describe it with that same way. Yeah, it's a democracy, but we can describe it as a racist state. We can describe it as a neo-Nazi state that is not friend, that is not just. We see what is happening to black people there. We see what America has done attacking countries around the world. We've seen the war in unjustifiable war in Iraq. We've seen how the Western world bombarded Gaddafi. These people are going around the world policing the war. They are more like a communist society as well. They're going around any country that disagree with the West, that country will be bombarded. They come together and cripple your economy. They destroy Zimbabwe. This is what they've been doing around the world. Is either you comply with your system or they destroy you. So the only country that have been able to survive is China and Russia. And the only way they were able to survive is for them to create a kind of government that these people cannot penetrate. The institutions are closed for the Western propagandas. Now, Russia is a superpower. Let us be clear, and they have nuclear bomb, maybe more than the United States. People don't realize this. Their nuclear capability is a bit higher than the US, okay? And you want to put NATO at their gate. I don't think it's fair. I personally don't believe it's fair for the NATO to go to Russia's gate because that is to call for World War III. Zelensky is careless.
Except if you want to.
Poroshenko was wise enough. That's why he tried to become neutral. But for you to Zelensky refused to understand the geopolitical reality of his country. He is in between the EU and Russia. And you want to bring NATO at the gate of Russia after World War II? That's not happening. And they should have realized that they should be able to understand the geopolitical reality of that. America will never allow Russia to put a base in Cuba or in Canada or in how they call it, Mexico. That will never happen. It will call for Armageddon war to happen. It will happen, but America will never allow that. So we cannot say there should be double standard.
But America is not threatening the world peace as compared to what Russia is doing. Russia is living in a total acrimonious relationship with her neighbors. And she has threatened on several occasions. This is not the first time that Russia has actually attacked Ukraine. If you qualify Russia's current decision, it's like indirectly saying those states do not have the right to take decisions on their own. These are sovereign states that are existing, and if they decide to join NATO, it is up to their own. It was neither NATO nor any other state that asked them to join. It is because they felt threatened by the very existence of Russia. So if we're watching at it on that background, I think it is time that Russia become friendly. Maybe she can institute policies that can be very foreign friendly, that may enable others to be safer around her, if not feeling the safest mode. But the very existence of Russia poses threat to states that are east-west of Europe, and they have seen NATO as the only Moses around. So you may definitely not blame them. I do agree with you on the fact that America will never allow Russia to do anything in Latin America or any other area where she has her own projects. But Russia's very existence is influencing things negatively. Maybe America bombarded Iraq in 2003, but it was out of Saddam Hussein's threat. He said a lot.
But there was no weapon of mass destruction. It was force.
Yeah, but there is freedom of speech, but there is no freedom out of speech, especially when you utter things that may threaten the very existence of other people. There are times you can easily be arrested for libel, sedition, or whatsoever thing. Maybe Saddam Hussein was very seditious. He uttered things that he was not in control of. And also when he invaded Iraq, maybe or in another way, somebody advised Job Root wrongly. But anybody who have had or listened to
does America have the right? Does international law allow them to attack any country they don't like?
Are you listening to the threat of being imposed or opposed by Putin? He's even threatening to create history into the history of any country that may decide to attack a troop into Ukraine. All those things are threat. And now you have been alerted in nuclear to be allowed.
America makes similar threat.
He's surrounded by yes men. They're advising him. The empire that is built over 30 years is definitely crumbling. He has a business empire around. I think the billionaires around him are no longer happy because their assets have been frozen. Putin has actually created threat, and he has made everything that they have built over the 30 years is definitely crumbling because of his imperialist mentality, aggressive movement, and Belgerian state of nature. I, for one, would enable peace, but I think Putin can be respected in one or two ways, but attacking Ukraine militarily was definitely not the solution to his problem.
Well, I don't say the military attack was a solution, but I think his military concerns were legitimate. He submitted his request, his concern rather, told NATO and said, these are my concerns. I wanted to look into them. You remember? He gave an entire list. They came back to him and they said they are not going to pay attention to his concern. And he's a superpower. This is a military superpower. If he's calling you on a table to sit down and discuss that he has concern, at least there should be concessions. You cannot say that there will be no concession. You are playing with a nuclear power and you say there should be no concessions. It's not only the United States has the right to express security concern. They attacked Iraq because of security concern. It's not like Iraq sent any bomb into America. They attacked Libya for what? Security concern. They attacked Afghanistan for security concern. Let us be frank. And this is the same thing that's been happening. And we cannot sit here and say they have the right to do it. Then when other people do it, then now it becomes war crime. This is what they do every day. They attacking other France. Didn't France go to bombard Africa right before our eye, remove one president and put another one? If Russia has done it, you know how we're going to characterize it? We're going to say that because they are totalitarian, they are this. This is the same thing they are doing. They go occupy people's country. If you don't accept, they bomb you. They do regime change. So I see no difference. The only difference between Putin and the United States is the media. But there is absolutely no difference. This is the same thing these guys are doing. This is the same thing Putin is doing. And he's only saying that, look, you guys have to move away from my border because for me, it's a threat to my peace and security. We are also a nuclear power. And I think they should sit on a round table and be able to listen to his concern because they are legitimate concern. You cannot break NATO to the gate of another nuclear power. It's a disaster. If those who are even doing it, they are steering on World War III, in my view. That's what they are trying to do. So I know we disagree on that, but let's move now to the African response. How did Africa respond to this issue? We've seen a lot of rain of sanctions coming on Russia. We've seen the EU sanction, economic sanctions, and all manner of sanctions. In fact, they crossed the red line even. Okay, so they involve FIFA and all in this politics, which I feel is a violation of sport and all these things. All the politics should be separated from all these things, but they went as far as eliminating them from FIFA, going after private citizens that have their businesses. They call them Russia oligarchs. They went after them. They went after airlines. Then they even went after diplomats at the United Nations, people that are protected by the UN law, that a host country does not have the right to expel or attack any country that comes to the United Nations General Assembly. America violated that rule and expelled those ambassadors from the United Nations. So all those things are happening. What does Africa respond? For one, I checked. I only listened to the Kenya ambassador who made a very powerful speech about this border issue and how it relates to Africa. And then I will come to that a little bit. But generally, how did the African Union respond? Do you think Africans were acting like China because China became a little bit non-aligned? They didn't support the European Union sanction and they didn't support the invasion per se, but also they did not support the sanction. Do you think that's where Africa is?
Well, let me just start from China. China has definitely acknowledged today or she confessed that she's not going to support any sanction against Russia, and she has maintained her normal relationship with Russia. Their transaction will continue to flow, and she believes in the principle of dialogue. Having underscored that, I think you cannot give what you don't have. Africa on her own is practically incapable of sanctioning Russia. And we do not even have the military capability, maybe to support Ukraine. A few countries like that can do such. We can call upon Egypt. And sometimes maybe we can refer to South Africa. However, Africa is rather far away from Russia. And when you watch at the ties of Russia with Africa, we are just trying to build up a perfect relationship, maybe that may benefit us more than what we have been enjoying from the like of France and America, which are our known godfathers, imperialist, colonialism country that we have watched for quite a long time for development and maybe solutions. Okay. Africa has responded. I listened to Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. He condemned the coup and asked for Africa not to be discriminated. Maybe Africa just responded in a compounded situation, not because they had wanted to condemn Russia, but when the very lives of our brothers and sisters who are currently living in Ukraine, maybe on business, they are staying there because of 1 or 2 years. Those who are attending school, they are not being treated fair, and at the same time they are the targets of the very fleeing people. And it is unfortunate that some Ukrainians today are found in Zanzibar and they are enjoying freedom. We all know Zanzibar is part of the horn, or is on the horn of Africa, where you have beautiful beaches around. People go there on tourism business. They have been treated fairly. They have been accommodated, encouraged, although they hardly come out because of the type of development that is taking place into their motherland. So they have sympathized with them. they have been protected. But because of our race and our physical appearance can identify us from the continent that we are coming, though they may not know our ethnic or religious a group or link, but just because of our color or physical appearance, you will definitely notice that we are from Africa. Now they are the target of both the Russians and the Ukrainians. So the AU and ECOWAS are complaining. I just listened to the BBC this 3 and 5 p.m., where a lot of Africans are now a subject of target. They are not being treated fairly, and sometimes they are not even allowed to onboard the planes or trains or whatever thing that will be going on, because they just feel that they should be the first people. And even those road for Africans, for the fleeing refugees to actually join them, they are not helping the situation, because they believe that most of these people, Africans, they may be there either on economic or whatsoever thing purpose. They don't want to encourage them because they do not have legal papers of entry. But they should have understood that they are all suffering from the same circumstance. There are people from different mother, from different generation, but they are all in the same kingdom. Why shouldn't they be treated fairly? So African has responded by tabling in written reports to both UN, AU, even to the Ukrainian government and that of Russia, that Africans shouldn't be a subject of target. They have got nothing to do with the current political crisis between Ukraine and Russia. They are only there either on academic basis, business, or whatsoever thing. So they should be accorded the same respect, the same treatment, instead of them being discriminated. But most Africans today are now are living at the detriment of their own life. So they are listening, Asian, Chinese, and other people are definitely becoming another target. So I think African has responded into that way by condemning the activities of those Ukrainians that are discriminating Africans and Russians that are making them a target. And on the fair basics, if you watch at it, Africa may not even definitely condemn Russia, because should they decide to condemn Russia, who knows? Russia is a belligerent state led by a dictator who believes something in aggression. They can even use them as a target. And you have heard on numerous occasions what they have said. And one of the responses could also be like, Algeria has publicly opted to start supplying gas to Europe. And we know Italy and Germany has definitely refused to sign the SWIFT, to sanction the SWIFT treaty sanction, which means it kind of to discourage transaction done through text messages when it comes to making transaction in time of gas between Europe and Russia. Especially Germany and Italy are solely dependent on the petroleum and gas that is coming from Russia. They have refused to sanction it. Now we are seeing Algerians have opted publicly that they are willing to supply. But with the gas in Nigeria being enough, how long will this transaction take place? America has also is willing to support these things. But I think Africa is a bit afraid. They are only being diplomatic, and they have ties with Russia now. Because when you watch at Mali, you watch at Burkina Faso, you watch at Guinea, and other places like Uganda. Now they are definitely, Russia is definitely infiltrating into those people. That is why African has been on a larger scale, they have been silent. They have only come out publicly to condemn both Ukraine and Russia because of the treatment that is being meted out by these Africans.
Okay, thank you very much. We've seen that's a very good point there. The African response to the Ukrainian Russia-Ukraine conflict. So that takes us to the second question on the same Russia-Ukraine conflict. So the report of racism against Africans, like you already touched on that a little bit, that both the Russian and the Ukrainians are directing their racism towards Africans who are resident in that country within the conflict. And even at the border, Africans who are fleeing to Poland are also being rejected at the gate. So, this thing started spread on social media. Okay, they started sending videos and other things. The BBC, CNN, other people were avoiding the news. They were only focusing on making the whole world cry, about about Ukraine, and they were avoiding until the news from social media now went to the African media, private media houses. They begin to move a little bit until it became a mainstream news. There is no specific reason being given. I think it's just the usual resentment anti-black racism that we have in the world, global anti-black racism that Africans themselves sometimes ignore, sometimes don't see, or sometimes pretend that they don't see. You remember the COVID-19 issue in China. The COVID started in China. The whole world know that it started in China, but Chinese were discriminating against Africans living in China. Why? Saying they had COVID. Can you imagine that? And the COVID came from them, and they polluted the whole world. Nobody went and started running. Imagine if COVID had started in Africa. You know, every black African person would be called COVID. Like, you know, when the Ebola issue started, you know what they did? They stigmatized African people. Now that they started from there, yesterday there was a report. There was a video that was done by this comedian, Trevor Noah. So Trevor Noah did a video where he showed different media in America and Europe. They were saying that this conflict that is happening in Ukraine, they feel so sad to see Europeans running away, being inflicted with pain, that this type of thing should only be happening in Africa, not in Europe. How can whole Europeans be running away with children, running away, crossing border, that these things only happen in Africa? So Trevor Noah said, Europe has been fighting war more than any other continent in the history of the world. Africa war, we just started fighting war. Europeans have been fighting war since they became civilized. Okay, they fought the most dangerous war in the history of humanity. They've been fighting war more than any other person. They've had pandemic more than any other continent. But sometimes when you don't know, they make it appear as if we are the war-torn people. We were the one who was supposed to be miserable. So it was very unfortunate to watch these things on the screen, African students being discriminated upon. But why they in Africa, they are treated as demigods. Like you just mentioned, a group of Ukrainian tourists in Zanzibar, they are stranded. When the war started in their country, they could not pay for their hotels. They could not afford to go back to their country. Guess what? The government of Tanzania decided to take care of them, treat them as kings and queens. And guess what is happening to Tanzanians and other Africans in Ukraine? They are pushed off the train and they are not allowed to escape. It's very, very painful when you compare the treatment of Africans in these people's country and compare to how they are treated in our country as gods. Comment on that, Edward.
Well, thank you very much. I think the supremacist mentality of the West, especially white, have led them to think that they are superhuman, and it has constructed that xenophobic and racial mentality into them. Today, Africans have been looked upon as very inferior. I think it is high time Africans started thinking straightforward. We have seen the kind of treatment that is being meted out to our African brothers and sisters into Ukraine. Ukraine is just an epitome of those examples, but it is not limited. In America, in Canada, where you are, all over the world, wherever you found an African, anytime there is an antisocial activities going on, they are associated with us. They feel that we are inferior, we are not perfect human beings to do things on our own, and our very presence is like a threat to their philosophy or their civilization. Now, I think it is high time Africans leaders, especially our leaders, started to doing some things that may protect our very existence into Africa. Because it is only in Africa where you find out that people of different race, especially those of Arab, although they are part and parcel of Africa because of their Northern African origin, you see Europe, you see Indians, whites, they are being accorded perfect respect, and human rights here is surround them compared to us. Now, we are definitely vulnerable into a conflict that we never created. But there are Ukrainians around the world, there are Russians around the world. I think Africans started holding them responsible. We can react at a force. If Zelensky can react against an invading, strong and intimidating force like Russia. He stood up against them. Russia is standing today like an entity. Ukrainians are here. Russians are here. Why are we pampering these people when our African brothers are being manhandled? They have been threatened. Some of them are even pushed on the train. Look how they have been discriminated in Poland. Right. They have struggled. We come around the border. We send them out of the train. And yet, we have our gullible leaders who sit down. They are pampering those people of different race into our own country at the detriment of it. I think the response from our leaders on mere condemnation is too traditional and has never been helping Africa. They should recall. And at times they said brutality is needed when things are complicated, but one shouldn't take it as a garment of life. But if it is a way, I think Russia has just decided that on another school of thought, the best way that I can do to fight for my own sovereignty is to strike. And she has done that. And now you have seen how the Western world is focusing. Maybe by the time we started also setting some bright examples, our African leaders will also be treated fairly. But as long as we continue pampering them, now our brothers are being dressed. Some of them are even losing their life because the Western media will never report on things like that. They are only focusing on Ukraine, Russia. They will never tell you about the death on Africa. Today I listened to a Chinese man, a complaint being tabled for a Chinese man who was being killed, and other Cubans and people who have been intimidated, molested. But Africa, except I'm here, I even listened to Peter Okocha, who is a journalist from BBC, Nigerian by origin, who was reporting on those things. Trust me, a typical white journalist, we've forgotten anything that is about Africa and only concentrate on the white. Why do you think a black man has sacrificed his life to be on those borders to report on us? Because our issues are being ignored. So let us ignore them here.
Definitely, brother. It's very unfortunate what is happening. The Eurocentric mentality of the African person. It's very unfortunate to see that the very first rule of nature has been ignored by the African people, which is self-preservation. The very first law of nature. And you know, any organisms in science that ignore that rule of nature, it will be eliminated. If you ignore self-preservation, you got to be eliminated. Even nature itself rejects you because you ignore your existence. It's unfortunate our media, they will be focusing on what is happening to Ukrainians rather than what is happening to Africans. When there is war in Africa, Europeans report first what happened to Europeans in that country. They focus on the survival of their people. It is not, you may call it racism. For me, I think they have survivor mentality, and we don't. We think that we just exist, but our collective existence is not important. And along as Malcolm X said, until Black people come to a point of consciousness where when one Black person is attacked, all Black people feel attacked, then our success, our freedom has come. But until that feeling can come, where one Black person is attacked, all Black people feel attacked, until we get that feeling, we are not ready for freedom, we are not ready to be respected, and we are not ready to be regarded as other people. Touch even an Arab in front of white people, they will react. Touch one white, all white will react. Kill in Liberia, our civil war, we killed almost thousands of people, but just few white people that died till today, they are investigating what killed them. This is the way they love their people, and I appreciate it. We are unfortunate not to have such consciousness, and that's what is happening to us. So we will take a short break, and during the break, I will play a short clip from the conflict from BBC. I think it's BBC. This clip comes from BBC. We're going to play it to show what is happening on the conflict. Then when we come back, we have a few more questions from West Africa.
So suffered heavy shelling overnight. Our first report is from our correspondent, James Reynolds.
At night, in Ukraine's second city of Kharkiv, there is little rest. Reports this morning say that Russian paratroopers have landed in the city as part of an aerial assault. These strikes follow this missile blast outside a government building early yesterday morning. In Kharkiv now, the simple act of going outside has become a risk. Russia's offensive reaches deep into Ukraine. These are pictures of what's claimed to be a Russian airstrike on the Ukrainian city of Zhytomyr. That's 80 miles west of the capital, Kiev. Rescuers search for survivors. In Kiev, 5 people were killed when the main TV and radio tower was hit. Russia has warned that it's preparing to go after further targets. It may do so using forces in this 40-mile-long military convoy stationed 20 miles from the outskirts of Kiev. The build-up suggests that Russia may choose to intensify its assault in an effort to overthrow Ukraine's pro-Western government.
Work and sleep, that's it.
But Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky remains in power. He's even invited journalists in Kiev to meet him. Showing his face as often as possible has become a wartime strategy.
І тому відкрите небо to close the sky, yeah?
That is why no-fly zone. These are preventative sanctions. We wanted them like other ones before. Now the sanctions have been introduced. Thanks be to God, and we see how they affect the Russian economy. We warned both the President and the European Union. Introduce them preventively, introduce them earlier, and you'll see what the reaction will be, that there will not be any invasion.
Ви побачите, яка буде реакція. Не буде ніякого вторгнення.
Millions of Ukrainians now face the hardest of choices: stay or leave.
Thank you for watching Roundtable Africa. This is Focus on Liberia, and we are bringing you live from. I'm reporting live from Canada. My co-host Edward Amara is all the way from Sierra Leone, and today we are discussing, as usual, latest news from around Africa. We are discussing today Ukraine, issues that happen in Ukraine, the crisis, and how Africans have been affected, and how African as a continent, our political leaders have they responded to the crisis in terms of the sanctions on Russia and other political consequences that the West is trying to put on Russia. Now we're moving away from that topic now, and we're going to Ivory Coast. And Ivory Coast ex-speaker denies weapon discovery at his residence. Edward, this issue has been going on, between Ouattara and his former prime minister and former speaker, Guillaume Soro. Tell us what is happening. Why is Ouattara behind this guy? And why does Guillaume Soro refuse to disappear from the political scene even after he resigned?
I think Guillaume Soro was once the prime minister of Ouattara. These are two old folks. They know themselves very well. Ouattara being an old man, he knows that he will definitely quit power one day, or power may quit him. And Guillaume Soro has that political ambition. Mind you, he resigned and decided to contest for that election. On numerous occasions, he has been accused. This is the second time that we have seen an accusation like that has been leveled against this person. And he has also been accused by making an attempted coup to assassinate the president. So we all know our African leaders. They don't like politicians or opposition leaders that are well informed about their own political strategies. It has just been an African philosophy or a philosophy of politics. If it happens for you to find out somebody who was close to you, he has a lot of secret about it. He knows the weaker points. They may do everything they can to bring you down. I'm not saying Guillaume Soro is guilty or not guilty of what he has been accused of. But if he has been accused of an attempted coup, I was expecting him to be behind by then. He wasn't, or he is not. And he has now been accused of having armed ammunition. Maybe Ouattara wants to protect himself, especially because of development that surrounds him. We have seen what happened in Ivory Coast before this time, and now We are seeing Lauren Gbagbo there, Simon Gbagbo is there, and they have revived and created another political party. Development in Burkina Faso, development in Mali, and development in Guinea, and not protecting Ouattara. So the best thing he can do is to ensure that those who are eyeing his power directly can either be falsely accused or genuinely accused, to have certain clandestine intention against the whole government, and to be seen as a threat of national peace, and for those people to be put under definite or in the dungeon, so that they should not have, in case there is opportunity like that, they should not be the lead way. So because we are out of time, in short, that is what I'm seeing playing to Ivory Coast. Because if this man had actually been a convict or a realistic person who has that intention to facilitate the overthrow or war into Ivory Coast, things like that should have happened for quite a long time. But he's not, and he has been accused of such thing like that. I just think he's been threatened by development around, and knowing that in case opportunity like that crop up, Gian Solo could be one of the first people to support such act. So you want to bring him under control to protect himself from any other foreign aggression or any other development that is taking place into his neighbors.
Right. I think I agree with you. I think Ouattara is feeling insecure, and because for the very beginning, Guillaume Soro has been a good book until when he refused to support the third term. I think there was something going on about he trying to run, and then the president were trying to quiet him down and something like that. So there was some kind of political disagreement, and he was forced to resign as the Speaker of the House. So since then, suddenly he became someone who was plotting coup. He became corrupt. He became someone who have been stealing money. But all this while that he was in the government, he was in a good book. He was regarded as a revolutionary. He was regarded as a great man. In fact, the president referred to him as my son. So I think Ouattara knows who Guillaume Soro is. Ouattara knows what he's capable of. So the best way right now to keep the security on high alert is to create this false flag. Like you said, it said this person and this person want to bring coup d'etat. So that put an alert in the military, put the security on high alert, then to prevent, even if there is such thing going on, it becomes more difficult to achieve because it's already in the consciousness of the entire security, and people are looking for any kind of little possible evidence to leak out the secret. So I think that's what he's doing. Other than that, Guillaume Soro knows that a coup d'etat right now in Ivory Coast is unlikely. Even if it happens, Guillaume Soro might not benefit from it directly. Okay, it will be very, very difficult because he has made enemies on both sides. The opposition of Gbagbo do not like him because he was responsible, directly or indirectly, for bringing Alassane Ouattara to power. He was the head of the rebellion that rebelled against Gbagbo's government. So he's not in good book or good rapport with those people. Now the Ouattara camp have rejected him because they feel he's over-ambitious and he wants power. He doesn't want the old man to leave, and he wants to take over from the old man so quickly. So they consider him as a suspect. So I think he's not in good rapport with any camp. So a coup d'etat will still not work for him. But I think Ouattara is smart. Ouattara knows his boy. So he decided to just do those kind of things. So all in all, Ivory Coast politics, for me, I believe Ivory Coast is still sitting on time bomb. That's my personal belief, Edward. I don't think Ivory Coast is safe. I don't think, although Ouattara has done well in terms of infrastructural development, he has done well on the sub-region, relatively better than most of those leaders. But his geopolitics, his international relation with the Europe and France, and all those things, and the way he came to power, I believe he's still sitting on time bomb. He has failed to reconcile the country. He has failed to reconcile the various political forces, just like Charles Taylor did in Liberia. After our civil war, he failed to unite all the political factions, and that led to his downfall. So I believe Ouattara has failed in terms of uniting the country, and there might be consequences.
Of course, I can't agree with you more. Ivory Coast is still on the time bomb. One, the manner in which what Ouattara assumed power now is definitely wrong. Some people term his government as is illegitimate because when Kulubali died, I think Griosolo had intention. That was why they fell out. He's appointed because Kulubali was the prime minister, and he designated him to be the man who should succeed. Unfortunately, Kulubali died within the course of the upcoming towards the election. He appointed himself, self-selected, self-nominated, and self-elected. Now, Gion Solo was against that particular ideology, and he designated him as a targeted enemy, and they have been moving on that. And Gbagbo, who has been eyeing power for quite a long time, spent some time into the Hague up to 11 or 12 years. He's now back. He still wield that type of influence. And you watch at Gion Solo very resistant, passing as a free man who's facilitated the departure of Gbagbo. He now come into power, said rightly, Gbagbo no trust him, and Ouattara also do not trust him, so they may not even influence his amalgamation into any of those parties. Then above all, the neighboring development is definitely not satisfying. So the old man over there is seated very uncomfortable into that chair, and he wants to solidify his security and want to ensure that anybody who is a threat, freedom should be severed and kept behind bar until. But now he's definitely not safe. He is not even aware of what may happen the next day. So at the end of the day, his loyalty is more with the army, with the police, and above all, his strong ties with France. It's not helping situation. Burkina Faso has fallen out with France. Guinea has fallen out with France. Then Mali has fallen out with France. And Africa still has that strong tie with France. So he knows now that France cannot successfully protect him into power, because if France would have been able to protect him into power, then those other leaders wouldn't have departed based on the activities that is happening to their own various countries. So he trusts no one. He relies on the military, but he knows that that military is also capable of unseating him out of power. So this is guy, either he decides to quit power, power may quit him. And maybe if I were him, he even want the time to expire today, and maybe he can sort his way out of that country.
Right. That takes us to our last point of discussion here. We jump one because of time. Liberia, the deputy minister Isaac Doe allegedly beat up his girlfriend in the streets and leave her severely with bodily cut and bruises on her. This happened. Liberian minister, I think they think that they are demigods. Or most African countries, even most, not all, but most, when they become ministers, they think that means they have been coronated to be king. It means that they are above all the system in the country, especially if they are close to the president, especially if they have some kind of relationship with the president where they are able to go without check. So if this happened in a developed country, this minister should resign. This minister immediately should leave his position, because this does not say well about a minister, sitting minister in a country to publicly assault his girlfriend or wife, whatever, on the street. What do you say about this, Edward? This is really despicable. It's embarrassing.
I think this is a classical shame, a slap in the face of the justice, and maybe a huge political blunder from the executive. As you rightly stated, it is only in Africa, and Liberia is no exception, where people, when they have been appointed as ministers, they think that they are above law, or they are above the law, they become outlaws. Look at this. I read a lot of things around this particular minister. He's a young man, and we are expecting much from him, but we are seeing less. Though he has gone on social media, denying and even accused the front page that printed that particular story. But I think there was another Spoon TV that would have interviewed him. They canceled the interview because of the allegation against his person. And now, it is so unfortunate and quite amazing that this so-called minister have written a report denying that such thing like that took place, when videos of the incident was definitely being distributed on internet, or it went viral. Can
Right,
he
there are
say his person
videos,
was
then you deny. How can there be video, then you deny? Were you creating in
exactly?
the
They
video?
say that he was being impersonated. This is what I'm saying. So this is a classical stupidity. And I was expecting, honestly speaking, because if you don't go to the mountain, or if Moses do not go to the mountain, then the mountain should come to Moses. If the man did not resign, then the president should sack him or should suspend him from his function. That was what I was expecting him. But our state constitution empowers the president to hire and fire the minister. And in a situation like this, he does not owe loyalty to the people, though it's the people that is serving. But he does not owe loyalty to him. The loyalty of him belongs to the president. And it is the president who determines him being in office or not. And a minister like that should not be there to violate the rights of women. This is a human rights violation, gender-based violence. We're expecting ministers to be preaching against the very existence of such people. But if he's there perpetrating those things, so how do you expect him to defend the common Liberia? And now he's saying that if Spoon TV or the front page of Liberia have evidence, then they should present, especially the girlfriend. She could have easily been bribed. That is one. She could easily be threatened by his hooligans around. And she will definitely come out and say these things. We all know these things. So we cannot be fooled by a fool. And we are not expecting to lead a blind man cannot lead me. We are definitely going to head into the dojo or into any other door. This lady can have either been threatened or bribed not to present her case. But this thing went viral. I think this is a very insult, and we are not expecting things like that, especially thinking about Liberia's history. How human rights violations have existed in the past civil war. How women, like we have been threatened, raped, tortured, and now if we are living in the liberal system where we are preaching liberal democracy, the so-called minister is there intimidating, torturing, molesting, and dehumanizing women on the street, and yet he has the guts to take pen and paper and write debunking those things. I think that guy needs to be bastardized. He needs to be told the truth. He needs to be carefully relegated and even dragged to the court and pay for his crime against that young lady. That lady, trust me, if she has not gone out publicly to make such complaint, she could either have been bribed or threatened by his hooligans not to come out publicly and make such report, else her life would be at her own detriment. We all know these things, how they exist. We know how powerful our local politicians are, especially where they wield a lot of influence and other things. So this could possibly be one of the things why the lady may not have come. Maybe she may come into the picture when he may not have been a minister, or in one or two ways, if he's been sacked or suspended, she can have the guts to come. But under these present circumstances, the cloud is too dark for her, and I don't think she can have the guts to present a case against that so-called minister for the time being.
Definitely. I agree with you. This should never happen at all. If now this current president, if he's not some kind of I don't know what word to use, a man who, of course, his friend just published a book, okay, so-called president, sat down in a drinking bar and discussed his sex life with his wife, his wife's sexual private life with his wife. He discussed that in a public with his friend in a drinking bar, and the friend put it in a book. So the entire nation was against the friend who wrote the book, but they are not asking, Mr. President, did you discuss your wife in a drinking, in a bar, in an alcohol area? You discuss your wife? This is what the nation should have been holding, Mr. We are responsible. Because he has such tendency and behavior, that's why he's not questioning his minister. How will a minister go public and beat his wife or girlfriend in a nation where we are trying to promote women's rights? A nation that has made history. Okay, first female president. We have female vice president right now. We have females ministers all over. A lot of programs have been made in that country, and you bring one president, and you have a super minister who can be able to go in the public and do what he wants, and there is video evidence that he come out and say, no, it's not true. Probably go pay the girlfriend some money. Then she will come out and say, no, he did not do anything to me. They do that in Liberia a lot. The minister will violate people, then even rape, and give them money to come to the public and deny and say nothing happened because there's poverty. Okay? There was news certain time that when ladies go to offices to look for a job, these ministers will say, we will sleep with you first before we give you a job. Okay? If the ladies come out to report Guess what? Nothing happens. This is what has been, even the president, there's information that he would ask for sex before he gave you a job in the government. The president. So this is the impunity. And the people think that it just happened. It happened in the highest level. That's why those in the lower level can do it and get away with it. And I think the civil society should go after him. People should go after him until the government is compelled. Because you know our government, if American embassy does not issue a statement on Facebook, they don't take action because they are zombies. Other people have to talk before they take action. We've seen several times where a minister in Liberia make a statement that will call tribal war, and the government says nothing. When American embassy issue a statement and said the minister's statement can incite violence, then the president was quickly able to act and suspend the minister. You waited for America to tell you that something is wrong in your government? Okay, so it's very disappointing. I think they should go after this guy. There are a lot of impunity in this weird government, a lot of bad guys, gangsters going around calling themselves ministers. He should not even be minister as we speak. As we are speaking right now, he should not be minister anymore. If he's able to go, what is he going to tell the nation? If you are able to do that in the public, then what is he doing in the house? You see? So what's your final comment, Edward? I think we've come to the end of this the podcast. And you can give your final statement and we say goodbye to our listening audience.
Yeah, I think I just want to express my heartfelt empathy for African brothers and sisters who are undergoing torture in Ukraine and other places of the world. We are hoping that Africa will make this our continent, especially our African leaders, an enabling ground where we may acquire all the wealth, all the employment and everything, even down to the sound education we are seeking for in Europe. It should be established here. And I believe that with a kind of brutal examples that our African are tasting into Europe, it is high time our leaders concocted certain things into their mind that should be implemented here that will be positive for we the Africans that live in there. Or as young people like me or may end up risking their life just to cross the Atlantic Ocean for green and pasture when we have a very green continent that is full of everything that we need. It is quite ironical that we are living in the pool of wealth, yet we keep wallowing in the pot of poverty. To finally drop up my communication, I think I really want to lay emphasis on the human rights violation that took place yesterday or a few days, was it on Sunday or Saturday in Liberia? I'm calling on Mr. President, the civil society members, and other human rights institutions to wake up from their slumber and vigorously campaign for this minister to be brought to book. I was expecting Mr. Minister to be sacked from the very minute that particular video went viral, placed under investigation, and if found guilty, he should definitely pay for his consequences. Maybe the minister can also be invoked so that he forget about his nonchalant attitude. He should accept the fact that what he has done is wrong, can explain to the whole world, and maybe ask for apologies for the woman. And to Madam Jurel Hawatila, I know she's Madam President because Her Excellency, she is the second most powerful citizen to Liberia. It is one of our own that has been violated. It is high time she took up that baton of power, call Mr. President, and ask him to either sack the minister or place him under investigation, suspend him until this issue can be laid to rest. But she being the second highest citizen into Liberia on prevailing circumstances and allowing one of the females' right to be violated. Of course, these are they voted for her, and it is because of her person they believe that she as a female being into that whole seat can easily protect them from such violation. Now, one of her appointed minister, maybe through the whatsoever thing, is now violating the right of the very people that they promised to protect. I think Jurel Hawatila should think twice and influence that decision. Let this particular minister be investigated. In a nutshell, I thank everybody, and I'm convinced beyond reasonable doubt that we still coming up with beautiful, entertaining, informative program that may help Africa to expose maybe our talents and other things that we have for the continent. And above all, I hope that the Ukraine war should just end tomorrow, because now Sierra Leone fear price is now on the increase. 20% has been added on the current price. Now it's 12,000, a bit above $1. And because of the increment in fuel prices, everything has just, even I don't know, but things are definitely getting on the worst part. And you cannot blame the government because she's not also producing oil on our. Unless that there's crisis into the Middle East or in Europe or America, we are definitely hit indirectly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edward Amara. Your input is always appreciated on this program. And then thank you for brilliantly laying out some of our topics and points that you made here. We learned a lot from what you said. My final comment here is to first to the Africans, young people in politics, young people in business, young people in school. The history of the war is being played right in front of our eyes, okay? And it's time for us to learn. There are two countries in the world, two types of countries. There are countries that have sovereignty, that are free, that are powerful, that protect their citizens, then their citizens are respected around the world. And there are countries that don't have sovereignty, that are poor, that are disrespected, and even their citizens are not recognized around the world. And sovereignty, to have a country, it's not just national anthem, it's not just a national flag. To have a country is to have military and economic sovereignty. If you don't have military and economic sovereignty, you don't have a country, you only have a geographical location of a group of people. Any powerful country can enslave you people anytime if they want. That's what happened to Ukraine. They have a flag, they have their language, they have their everything, but they didn't know a big country can enter in their country yesterday and take over all of them and they become slaves in the morning and nothing happened. That's what African countries are. We think we have countries. We don't. We are living in territories created by Britain, France, created by UK, Belgium, and we have flags and we have a national anthem we are singing around. But these countries do not have military and economic sovereignty. That means anybody can enslave us tomorrow. If the World War III starts today, Russia and America fight, China can decide and take over Africa in 2 weeks for security purposes. Say, I want to round up all these countries. One country in Europe can round up the entire Africa. So that's not countries. We have territories occupied by people, but they are not countries. And it's time for us to go with the Pan-African dream of creating a powerful state in Africa that will protect us. This dream has never died. And people think that it's a dream that will never be realized, but it's a dream that must be realized until we create a Pan-African state that is as powerful as USA, as powerful as Russia. We can never be respected around the world. This little territory we live in, created by colonial masters, should never be a country where we will feel relaxed. We have to push for Pan-Africanism. We have to push for the United States of Africa so that we can have a powerful state. We can have economic and military sovereignty so that we too, when anything happens to us, there will be consequences in the world because we are citizens of the world, we are respected, and because we have a powerful country. So I believe this should be the dream of every African youth in politics and not tribal thinking, not set all this kind of unnecessary micro-nationalism that we are trying to put our energy in. We have to put our energy in Pan-Africanism and Afrocentricity for the future and the benefit of our children. So I believe that's my point on the issue of Ukraine conflict. So on the issue of the gender-based violence in Liberia, I support, I just kind of follow up on what you said. Liberian government should take a stand. They should not allow this to happen in the 21st century. We've come so far to be able to allow this to be happening. Those days are gone. Our women are not our slaves. You cannot just wake up on the street, slap your wife. Those things have to be gone and done away with. We have to live as civilized people. We have to be able to have dialogue and not always violence. Any little thing on the street, people remove their shirt and begin to fight. I think the strongest people in the world are those who have the power of the mind, not the power of the muscles. So this man should be dealt with so that other ministers will learn that it is not allowed in our society. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining Focus on Liberia and Roundtable Africa special program. We'll bring you again next week, Wednesday, and we'll always bring you the best from around the continent. And always stay tuned, and thank you for joining us.
We all love you.